Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The session that we're having right now is on aspiring states to the national benchmark. Now, this is a subject that we've covered to a large extent in the last session, but Minister of State in the Prime Minister's office and a person who articulates the government policy in a number of areas is with us, Dr. Jitendra Singh. Sir, let me start off by asking you. Now, isn't it crucial that aspiring states, that require to reach the national benchmarks, not only from the development perspective of making India a major power, but even towards achieving the government's own target of making India a $5 trillion economy?
No, absolutely. Without disagreeing with you, even one bit, I would just add on saying that you would recall when this government came in on the 26th of May 2014, one of the earliest statements made by Prime Minister Narendra Modi was that he would like to prioritize the peripheral, the far-flung, the smaller states of India in order to bring them at par with the more developed states, because according to him, as he put it in his own inimitable way, he said, अगर एक बुझा बलवान हो और दूसरी निर्बल हो तो भारत माता का पूरा विकास संभव नहीं है. In other words, the wholesome and the harmonious growth of India would depend on how well we have been able to ensure equitable growth of all the regions. And going by that mandate and the spirit of that, I think we could see in the last 5 years the focus that was enjoyed by the northeastern states, because I also happen to be dealing with those states. And I think the transformation which has happened, revolutionary transformation over the last 5 years or so, is of such a huge magnitude that you have to see it to believe it. Because otherwise it's difficult to actually visualize how much of it is undergone. And I think, to add to what you say, what was required was a political intent, the outreach of the government, and in this case, luckily we had the Prime Minister's personal outreach. I think one of the very lesser talked about facts is that in the first 5-year term as Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi traveled to Northeast as many as about 30 times. 30 times. I mean, this is something I go around sharing with lots of friends and colleagues, and it's not much known fact, but I think that is maybe more than the total number of visits undertaken by any of the past, most of the past Prime Ministers put together. And for example, we have Northeastern Council, which has its headquarters in Shillong, because Shillong is traditionally the original capital of the erstwhile Assam, and therefore the headquarters happen to be there. Mr. Modi was the Prime Minister who traveled to Shillong to preside over the plenary meeting of Northeastern Council, and he happened to be the Prime Minister visiting Shillong for that meeting after 40 years, the last one being Mr. Morarji Desai. So that is the kind of outreach. And I think these are the states, because we tend to think of 11 states together, to come back to where you started, which includes 8 states of Northeast region and the 3 hill states, including Jammu Kashmir, Uttarakhand, we have the Honorable Chief Minister there, and Himachal Pradesh. Now these are the states which have huge unexplored potential. And therefore when we talk in the terms of 5 trillion economy, though I'm not an economist myself, nor a student of economy as such, but what I can, from a general sense understand is that we would have to look for unexplored resources, which have for certain reasons remain unexplored or untapped, maybe some of the political reasons, though I hate to comment that way. But I was the other day saying in Mizoram, because for example, we have a small state called Mizoram with just a population of mere 10 lakh. And we have the Indian subcontinent's first ever specialized citrus food park set up over there for the last 2 years with Israeli collaboration, of course. And I said, I sometimes wonder why this could not have happened earlier. Was it so because Mizoram, being a small state, hardly contributing to the making or unmaking of the governments at the center, sending just one MP? So the concentrations of the powers that we were more focused on some of the most popular states which had a stake politically. So I think we have gone beyond that. And the same way, the Prime Minister gave us the concept of aspirational districts. You see, I think the entire approach, because unless the political dispensation lays down the direction, nothing goes down. The approach has undergone a change in the work style and the work culture itself. Now, citing the example of aspirational districts, about 115 districts were identified, out of which 14 in these states, which were purely on the basis of scientific criteria, scientific parameters of development, be the healthcare, be the education, sanitation, etc., etc. And I think what would exemplify when I tell you this anecdote, because I happen to be part of that committee which was, dealing with this. The moment these 115 odd districts were announced, I received phone call from my constituency कि साहब आप दिल्ली में बैठे हैं तो आपकी constituency में एक भी जिला नहीं आया. So that was the kind of mindset which with the political dispensation had been operating over the years, because any minister, anybody who becomes a rail minister would first think of carrying the railway train to his hometown or his village. Anybody who has to identify the districts which have to be developed on prioritization, he would first identify 2-3 districts from his own Lok Sabha constituency. But then I had to explain to my people, I said, no, this is entirely different. The Modi culture is entirely different from what it had been earlier. So these districts are based on purely scientific objective criteria laid down by certain experts. So the political beings have nothing to do with. So I think the result today is that we have now started, and I think the northeastern region is already taken over, including the northeastern state. And if you go by the intent, we have an Indian Forest Act, which is exactly 100-year-old. It was brought by the British Raj in 1919. It was after 100 years that on the directions of Prime Minister Modi, a cabinet note was brought in and an amendment happened to exempt homegrown bamboo from the provision. Now see, what a huge difference it makes. Because nearly 35% of the bamboo is stored in these northeastern states, some of it also in some other states. And you could not have utilized it because of the legacy of an obsolete rule. And this, having done in the last 1 year or so, has opened up new avenues of livelihood. And bamboo is, I think, the new trademark for India's overall growth to 5 trillion. Similarly, as we're talking of resources, these states, all these 11 states, the 3 hill states, Himalayan states and the 8 states, just contribute about not more than, less than 10% of India's population. If you take Northeast alone, it's just about 4.5 to 5, and the other 3. But the literacy rate, if you just take the 8 states of Northeast, on an average is more than 75%, and some of the states like Sikkim and Mizoram have more than 95%, which is just equal to Kerala, though I always say that this comparison is unequal because Kerala had a legacy of a high literacy rate even from the British Raj. Similarly, GDP. Now here, going back to the relevance of what Prime Minister Modi said, that we have to have an equitable growth. For example, in a small state like Sikkim, the GDP is more than 20%. Whereas at the national level, we still struggle for 2-digit. So I think that carries merit, what Mr. Modi has actually prompted us to look at it too. If we do not concentrate on these potentials, the potentials of human resource. Now, the earlier states were not giving enough of budget to the earlier governments. For example, when I came into this in 2014, I realized that the Northeastern Council had a budget of just about 700 crore. So next day, I sought appointment and reached the office of Finance Minister Shri Arun Jaitley ji. And I told him, sir, how am I going to function? Because we don't have even 100 crore per state. So he smiled back. Then I said to myself whether I should have made this observation before a person like him. He was also our mentor. But he was that kind that immediately he enhanced our budget. And it's now, in the last 5 years, we have about 30% enhancement in the overall budget for the Northeast. The other submission I made to him, the same sitting, because he also happened to be looking after information and broadcasting. I said, my observation is that a state like Arunachal Pradesh is full of scenic beauty. Same also is the case of Uttarakhand. Same also is Himachal Pradesh. But you hardly have Bollywood shootings happening over there, because Arunachal at that time just had about 2 shootings. So he said, what do you infer out of that? So he used to call me philosopher. I said, sir, because I happened to be once in Leh when a shooting was going on with all these big stars, including Amitabh Bachchan was there, and for the first time I saw huge wardrobes being carried. So I asked, what is it? He said, no, their garments come ironed like this. So then I realized that in Arunachal we don't have a place to even, so can we have a film studio? But he was so kind that in the next budget, he announced a film and television institute. So we have this second film and television institute after Pune coming up in Arunachal Pradesh. So I think this government has already realized the importance of exploring the unexplored potentials, because that is statistically important to reach that 5 trillion goal.
If I can ask you, sir, you mentioned extensively on the Northeast. What is the learning that you can take from this area, which has traditionally not had very strong infrastructure, various industries that needed to be developed? What is the learning that can be taken from that area in the context of the northern region?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. Now, Northeast, and then if you take it in the context of the other northern states, Jammu and Kashmir being a classical example. See, Northeast was a victim of negligence, or maybe a different kind of a political prioritization. And so therefore, for the last 60, 65 years, we couldn't actually make the kind of headway that has happened in 5 years. And of course, connectivity and communication are the basic prerequisites. You see, you have about 30% of route lying on the ground there, but it remains unutilized because you don't have storage. I told some of the Delhi industry leaders, I said, if you prepare juice, you will actually be able to sell the real juice, not the real juice which is sold in Delhi, which is quite unreal. So, but the point is that you don't have storage. Now we have started on that. Now, in this context, in the light of this, if you look at the other states, and the classical example being Jammu and Kashmir, because of the political embargoes, though this is not a session dealing with that, but the Article 370 has been a huge, huge stumbling block in replicating all these success stories of Northeast. And I have been increasingly realizing in the last 7-8 weeks that all these things which we have done in the last 5 years could have been much, much easily been replicated in Jammu and Kashmir, which has, has similarities of topography and geography, but is better placed as far as connectivity and communication is concerned. But because of the self-imposed embargoes, we deprived ourselves and we did injustice to the people. Now, for example, I spoke of the Indian subcontinent's first ever citrus fruit park, having been set up in the last 2 years in a small state like Mizoram. Why couldn't we have an apple fruit park in Kashmir, or a strawberry fruit park in Kashmir, or a saffron fruit park? Or now we have started first ever bamboo industrial park on Guwahati-Shillong Road, just about 2 months back. Right. And we could easily have a saffron industrial park or a pashmina unit of the same scale. So I think for reasons which are other than economics, these states, some of these states could not actually get the benefit. But I'm sure with the kind of new direction that has been sought to be taken, this is going to happen. Because unless we put to optimal utilization the resources of these states, it is not easy, because the other states have already got saturated. Now, I'll give you another example. Prime Minister gave us a beautiful program called Startup India, Stand Up India, which has a tax holiday provision, which has an exit period. You know, a young entrepreneur, if he doesn't find his heart in the venture that he's launched, he can change over in 3 months. In Northeast, from our ministry, we also added on to it a venture fund, so that the youngster does not have to actually depend on capital from other sources or his parents. And my visualization at that time was that maximum exodus from Northeast and these smaller states, including the other 3 states, happened for the search of job. But today, in 3 years, I'm gratified to see that we are getting startup growth from Gujarat. We are getting startup growth from Karnataka, which only proves the point which I was saying a few moments ago, that when the resources and potentials get saturated in some of these more developed states, the youngsters will have to look forward to these states. Right. And I'm sure the day is not far. These 11 states, including Uttarakhand, Jammu, Kashmir, also with the new kind of a political arrangement there, and the 8 states of Northeast are going to be the favorite destination of every young startup from across India. Now we have so many of the youngsters from each family, middle class family, going over to Dubai, going over to, going across the continent. And when a child or a son initially breaks the news to his parents that I am decided to go to Canada, the initial reaction is that of hesitation, like any other parent. The mother would say, Papa se baat karo, Papa would say, Shadi karani. But if the child says, I'm going to Shillong, the child says, I'm going to Srinagar to set up a unit, I think this is the win-win thing. The parents will also be encouraging. Right. So we are actually, I think the kind of transformation is happening is not only confined only to economics. As Mark Twain once said, economics too serious a subject to be left to economics alone. So this is actually transforming our social behavior and the entire social psyche. So I think this is making a huge difference.
Right. So I want to make another point that recently at a UP Investor Summit, the Prime Minister said that Uttar Pradesh should be competing with Maharashtra to see which economy becomes a $1 trillion economy first. So, obviously Maharashtra's economy is double the size of Uttar Pradesh. But do you think it's this competitive spirit, not just cooperative federalism, but competitive federalism also, that is very important to drive states in terms of realizing their aspirations?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is something which has been inspired by Prime Minister Modi in a very effective manner. About 3 years back, I had the opportunity of delivering the Sardar Patel annual lecture, which we have said to be a prestigious lecture annually. And my theme was this, cooperative and competitive. And this aspirational district actually is based on that. You have a couple of districts. They are not necessarily backward districts. Though to a layman it would. This may be a district, it's come into that category because it is lacking in one of the scientific parameters. For example, it might be lacking in healthcare, it may be otherwise having 100% literacy. So then there's a scientific method of first bringing it at par by competing with the best parameter district of that state, and then the best parameter district of the country. So Prime Minister Modi has already put us on this pathway, and I think this is actually the more scientific and objective manner in which we can develop. And there is no extraneous consideration, no political considerations in this. So I absolutely agree with this, that this kind of competitiveness, which also was possibly not being possible because of the political reasons in the earlier governments, is now begun to happen. And that's why we are finding a huge transformation happening.
Right. So some of the other states, if you compare Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, for instance, that have already got $200 billion economies. The question that we're looking at this point of time is, other states, how can they learn from them? Of course, it's easy to say that they are coastal states, they've traditionally had a lot of industry. What really can be learned? Because something must be done right in those states. Their economy, their human development indexes are at a much higher level.
No, certainly, I think, of course, as you rightly said, Madhavan, they traditionally had certain advantages, inherent advantages, and they were known to be developed states even during the British Raj, the undivided state of Mumbai, or that time known as Bombay, which comprised of Gujarat and Maharashtra. And similarly, also, we didn't have separate states. Now we had a single undivided state of Madras, which included the present Andhra and present Tamil Nadu and the present Bangalore, which is the hub. So there was an advantage. When the Britishers came, the East India Company came, they first landed in Calcutta. So first Presidency College in Calcutta, first Medical College in Calcutta, first industry in Calcutta. So they traveled along the coast, as you rightly said. Second Madras, so second Medical College of India in Madras, second Presidency College of India in Madras. Then they traveled upwards, Bombay. So there were certain advantages. But the Britishers themselves, at that time itself, realized the importance of also extending this advantage northwards. That is how it is the British who had actually handed over Kashmir to Maharaja Hari Singh, though at a price. After he parted, Maharaja Ranjit Singh parted with a part of it. So they could actually foresee this happening, but of course their journey started that way. And after that, I think Prime Minister Modi has realized, because in the intervening years, though I hate to say so or observe so, maybe the political considerations subconsciously took over, or maybe tended to subconsciously dictate our priorities. And that is why I said, otherwise, I was saying this in Mizoram without any hesitation. I said, look here, we have Indian subcontinent's first ever fruit park of this kind in a state of 10 lakh with just returning 1 MP. Why should we have done this if we had gone by the vote bank consideration? You would be the last to have this. And the people realize this. So I think that is the difference that is happening now. And I agree with you. There's not much to learn from these already developed states, including Gujarat, Maharashtra, but at the same time, there is much more to learn about the resources available in Northeast. As the proverb goes, that some of us know that they don't know. Others don't know that they don't know. So in the case of Northeast, what has happened is that we don't know that we don't know. We didn't know that we had bamboo growing in abundance in our backyard. And you don't have to travel out for a livelihood. You can manufacture furniture out of it and do. You have home tourism now being introduced in Meghalaya. And these youngsters are making a fortune out of it. So when I came into this ministry, everybody would advise me, because I would go around trying to educate myself. And in India, the advice is very easily available, solicited or unsolicited. So one common advice that I received was, try to do something to bring Northeast closer to India. That was the so one day I said to myself, nobody asked, advising me, bring rest of India closer to Northeast. Because we have actually not been able to understand what abundance lies. Now, for example, in Himachal, you could have an apple industry in a much, much bigger magnitude if we had not, for political reasons, concentrated on other areas. For Uttarakhand, for the first time now, under Prime Minister Modi, the pilgrim tourism, you see, earlier on, Honorable Chief Minister will wear me out, we used to have, travelers coming for Kedarnath and visiting for reasons of faith. And in the manner in which is now it's becoming, developing, it'll have explorers coming from west to see what it is all about. So certainly though we have much to learn from the developed states also have much to look forward to, which was actually somehow did not catch the eye of the nation. And to come back to the 5 trillion economy, that has to be imperative.
Budgets of various states, cumulatively is actually higher than the national budget. But when it comes to economic management, whether it's fiscal management, whether it's ease of doing business, whether it's infrastructure development, there's a lot left to be desired at the level of the states. So do you think the states will also really have to pull up on that aspect, particularly when it comes to this economic management?
No, I agree with you, and I think to that extent, Gujarat is one state which has shown the way, particularly during the ministerial tenure of Shri Narendra Modi. It became actually power surplus when Mr. Modi was the chief minister. And for political reasons, there was no facilitation to, pass on power to the neighboring states, though the government had offered. So it has set an example. The dependence on center would also be required to bring about this cooperative federalism. So cooperative federalism, as you were mentioning a few moments ago, can actually thrive in the true spirit only if there is minimum dependence and there is an equal relationship. But I'm glad of late, particularly in the last 5 years or so, the smaller states have started looking forward, even yearning to become more and more self-dependent. And as I said, the classical example in North India is that of Jammu and Kashmir, and I'm sure with the change arrangement that we are going to have after the 31st of October, the things are going to travel so fast, it's difficult to believe how fast the sequence of events will happen.
Right. So one last question before we wrap up this session. One thing that we often see and we report in the news is how states, particularly those states that are doing very well, the aspirations in terms of the resources that they receive from the center, their expectation also increases as their productivity increases, as their economy grows. From the perspective of the center, balancing those aspirations for those states that are doing well, as well as those states that are in need of development and funds for that purpose, how tricky is that? How will that be looked at?
I think Shri Narendra Modi as Prime Minister was very quick to realize this. That is why the new incarnation of Niti Aayog. And I agree with you, the aspirations, and there is a reciprocal relationship. The more the growth, the more the aspiration. So if you become a brigadier in the army, you want to become general. If you become a general, but I think there's nothing wrong in that, because that's a competitive aspiration. What has happened very visibly is that some of these peripheral states in the north and some of these hill states, some of the most peripheral areas, you would feel sometimes disheartened, the youth having, parted away with aspiration. कि भाई हमारा तो यही हाल रहेगा. I give you an example of my state. My constituency, that video went viral. There was an 85-year-old lady from a Muslim household. She said कि हमने तो जिंदगी में समझौता कर लिया था कि हमारे जीते जी तो बिजली का लाटू क्या होता है हमारे नसीब में नहीं. यहाँ बच्चे जाया करते थे शहर आकर के कहानियाँ सुनाते थे कि इस तरह से कोई जगमगाती बिजली होती है. तो ये तो मोदी जी ने तो मुझे लाटू के दर्शन करवा दिए. So if गालिब का एक शेर है कि जब तवक्को ही उठ गई गालिब क्यों किसी का गिला करे कोई. So when you lose the hope of aspiration being addressed, you tend to actually lose the aspiration in course of time. And in these peripheral states, the northern states which you are talking, in some of the most peripheral areas which are inaccessible, where I travel to remote areas of northeast, I traveled to East Khasi Hill to visit the house of a freedom fighter called Tiroti Singh. who was one of the first freedom fighters way back before the first war of independence in 1830s. And the entire village came to see me to see how a central minister looks. So I had a good fun with them. So I said, did you think you'll see somebody with 2 noses and 4 eyes? So that was the kind of scenario. So those people felt that we had been actually left out of the mainstream development journey of India. And that also is very closely related. I think that is what is the scholars of economics refer to economic behavior. So the uniformity in economic behavior has also come with this aspirational urge happening.
Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us,
you,
Dr.
Madhavan.
Jitendra Singh. Thank you so much for joining us.
It was great enjoying.
Thanks a lot.